Well, I am so excited. This is the first time I've ever been nervous, Matt, in doing the podcast. So, Matt, I've been following you for, gosh, however long you've been probably out there in public. And I've admired you and admired your work. Matt Landman, first of all, I'm going to say your full name. Matt is a grassroots activist, and I love that term. And we'll talk about that a little bit more about what that means. He gained recognition as a leader in 5G, geoengineering, chemtrail, and bringing awareness to all of it. He filmed a documentary called Franken. I watched it again last night. I've seen it probably 4 times now. And every time I watch it, I pick up another piece of information that I didn't pick up the last time. So I highly encourage you to watch it. It will shake you to your core. It talks about weather modification programs, geoengineering, and what is happening in our world today. And in addition, he also runs and started a clothing company for protection of 5G called Spero, which I think means in hope, if I got that right, to support your body and health as we're dealing with the massive poisoning on our planet. So, Matt, welcome.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much. Thank you for your work and activism as well, and for the lovely introduction. I also have seen Frankenskies a lot of times, and every time I watch
I'm
it,
like,
I pick up something. It's unbelievable. There's like little nuances, little bits, because there's so much information in there. But of course, I made the movie, so I've seen it loads of times, and I've screened it so many times, and it's probably up to like 1,000 times I've seen this thing. But I
wow.
can't believe that every time I sit down with it, there's some little piece that
Yeah.
clicks. And it's been nearly a decade. So I'm really excited about also working on a sequel film, Frankenskies 2 Climate Chains, which is like a play on word because
Love
of
it.
it's self-explanatory, but climate chains is because the shackles are being formed in this Hegelian dialectic problem reaction solution scenario that we find ourselves in, where geoengineering is creating the problem. Geoengineering is creating these climate events, hurricanes, drought, flood, heat waves, and what have you. And then the powers
Fires.
that fires, especially, which we should talk about that. This is going to be a very important fire year right now. They call it Agenda 2030 for a reason, and we're getting close to 2030. And so these fires are going to start to be like a very big issue with everyone as we get pushed into 15-minute cities and what have you. But what happens is geoengineering occurs purposefully creating these weather problems, weather catastrophes, drought, fires, what have you. And then the mainstream media that's controlled, along with the powers that be through other things like the indoctrination system of the mainstream education, which is fascinating that there's geoengineering degrees out there. You can go get a master's degree in geoengineering and they'll tell you it's not even happening yet. And they'll tell you one day you'll be saving us from ourselves. So they create the problem, but then the the reaction is fear because we're worried about the future. And then the solution that's being propped up for us is geoengineering. So literally using the problem as a solution, telling us that they're not doing it yet, that they're going to do it in the future. And that's why it's called climate change, because there is no real climate change aside from the ongoing geoengineering campaigns, but they're utilizing this technology to try to corner humanity into thinking that we need their solution, which is actually the problem.
Right. So, yeah. Well, so tell us how you got started in this. So you were working on a farm, you looked up and you went, what is that? So tell us about that experience and what was the aha moment? What was it that spawned this desire in you to do something about it?
Well, thanks. And that's a great question. The desire in me to do something about it is when I first learned about it, I was shocked that no one else knew anything about it. My peers, my family, my professors at university who I would go visit. I had just recently graduated with a master's in business administration with a focus on strategic sustainability, which sustainability is like a dirty word now, but it wasn't that dirty when I graduated in 2010. But I got this degree and I worked in finance, and then I got this opportunity to get out of that corrupt world, which it was my moral integrity was being kind of like questioned in my workplace. So I bailed on that and I got a job at an organic farm. And the story is really important because the power of your voice is so it's worth talking about here. Because I had a friend back home in DC area where I grew up, and I was venting to him on the phone how the kids at the university, they didn't know much about like the conspiracy world and the truth that as far as I saw it. And so I would bring up 9/11 truth, and these like kids at the time, they're like 20 years old, and because I was also doing a film degree. So as I did the MBA, I did a film degree, and so I was mingling with like 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds, and they didn't know anything about 9/11, and some of them were hardly even born at the time. And my friend was like, cut them some slack. They weren't alive and living in DC like you were during that time, you know? Like during 9/11, I had a girlfriend in New York City going to Pace University, which is right next to the Twin Towers. And I was worried about her all day. And I was in DC during that semester going to school, up at home actually. And I was very impacted by it, but many people weren't. And so, like, cut them some slack, my friend was trying to tell me on the phone. But what he said to me is, but what about chemtrails? That's in everyone's faces and people ignore that. And he just planted that seed. And I said, what's that? What is that word? What do you mean? What are chemtrails? And he said to me, Matt, you're the one that showed me the documentaries on 9/11, Zeitgeist, and Loose Change, which documentaries can play a big role. I mean, like, as
They
you know,
can.
they really can, because not everyone wants to be schooled, but they can sit down in the comfort of their own living room and digest some information, you know? But if you're over their shoulder trying to bark things at them, they'll check out. It's different. You know, you got to meet them where they're at. In activism, it's very important. It's very important to deliver the seed and plant the seed. As we are activists, we're all, planting these seeds of truth. And it's so important to meet the people where they're at to plant the seed properly. Because if you're being frantic and you're in fear or whatever, the message isn't going to land well, and you're not going to play your part as an activist. So my friend got me looking up chemtrails, and he was like, look, Matt, if you don't know about this, and I thought you should and would, you have to look into it. So I went home, got on the computer, started Googling it, and that was the rabbit hole of my life. I started watching documentaries on it, and really just it was like the seed that was planted, and then it was shelved. But then immediately thereafter, I had this aha moment where I witnessed it all firsthand. And I don't know if the story came first, where he planted the seed, or I saw it and then I got the word chemtrails right afterwards, but it was all at the exact same time, where the universe was just giving me this like opportunity to open my eyes to the lies in our skies. And so I was working on this organic farm, and we were due to have this. Well, first off, we were in this really harsh drought. We hadn't gotten rain for a few years in California, whereas every single year, especially where I lived in Northern California, where I went to grad school, we would get this seasonal deluge of like 4 months of rain. Like the Pacific Northwest, it starts raining in like early November, late October, and it usually doesn't stop until like March, April, May.
Right.
But now things are changing as the jet stream gets manipulated and what have you. But in this instance, I was on the farm, and we were told to get out there and start harvesting pumpkins and squash and all these things in the field, because it was supposed to rain. We didn't want the vegetables to rot in the field. And as I was out there, and we got the forecast was 100% chance of rain for 1 week. Everyone was excited. Even the frogs and salamanders, these amphibious creatures that lived underneath my house, they like came out. They could feel the storm coming. These black
Yeah.
storm
Nature
clouds.
knows, right?
Yeah,
The
nature really
animals
knows.
know.
They really know, and they're in tune with it all. And I mean, I've even had experiences where I've seen flock of birds freaking out, going in a direction, and then I hit this crazy storm, like driving cross country and whatnot. Like The animals will tell you and show you if you have
Mhm.
the eyes and ears and heart to listen. So this massive black storm cloud came off the ocean, and where I worked, I could hear the waves. It was like this. We did dry farming, and you can grow potatoes and a lot of different food without even watering it if you have like a good amount of humidity. And because we were near the coast, we did dry farming, and we could hear the literally hear the ocean. And off the coast came this massive storm system, black storm clouds, and we were expecting to get dumped on like any minute now. And where I lived was very sparse air traffic, very rural Northern California. On the farm in any given day, maybe I'd see one jet fly over, and the jet wouldn't have any sort of line coming out of the back. No persistent linear cirrus cloud formation coming out of the back, aka aerosol spraying, chemtrails, geoengineering, stratospheric aerosol injection, solar radiation management. There's so many different words for it, which we should talk about because they try to confuse it and muddy the waters with all the
Yeah,
synonyms or
they
what have
change
you.
a word and then you don't know they're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, in
Super
England, for
great
instance,
tactic.
yes, in Britain, where I've been holding these, I'm holding annual summer solstice rallies in London to wake people up to chemtrails over there, and it's getting a lot of momentum. There's a big push over there because people are waking up, and so I'm trying to give it a lot of energy over there. In England, the government refers to this ongoing spraying program, which they normalized last year and said they're going to be doing it publicly. They refer to it as Satan, the Stratospheric Aerosol Transport and Nucleation Program. And they literally came up with that acronym and they call it, they don't say Stratospheric Aerosol Transport and Nucleation Program. They just say the Satan Program. We're
Oh my
spraying the skies with
gosh.
the Satan Program. And it's all throughout mainstream media. And people don't even blink except for those that are aware and they know that like they're blocking the sun, the giver of life, with the Satan Program. I mean, like, let's think about this. So, anyways, I'm on the farm, and as this storm system shows up, 20 planes also showed up. And so, like statistically, which I had have a degree in business, and I had a really intense course in statistics. And statistically, it doesn't make sense for a whole bunch of planes to just show up out of the blue, literally out of the blue sky, um, unless they're doing something. So you can track it every single day. I'm on the farm. There's maybe one plane every day. There's one plane every day. There's one plane, hardly, if that. And then all of a sudden, on the edge of a storm system, around 20 planes showed up. And all these planes were leaving lines out of the back of their
Mm.
wingtips or whatever, was. They're spraying lines. So not only was it an irregular pattern of appearance and a statistical anomaly, but all these planes were zigzagging on the storm front, leaving these lines in the sky. And then the storm dropped no rain. Like the sky was black for like 3 days at least as this massive system went over our heads. And whereas we were expecting a 100% chance of rain for a week, we got not a drop. Okay. And then the drought continued. And some farmers had to like close up shop, and some of these farms got bought up for pennies on the dollar because they were drought stricken and who knows when the rain's going to come. Right. And then come to find out, Bill Gates is the largest farm owner in the US. And there's even a commodities market in Chicago where the weather is traded now. You can literally um, bet on the commodities exchange and you can bet on weather, what have you. So if you're behind the scenes and you're able to know who's going to get droughted out and when they're going to get rain, you can not only bet on the weather, but you can gobble up farmland for pennies on the dollar. And then right when you own it, all of a sudden it's raining and the drought is alleviated. Like, wow, what a coincidence. So these planes showed up, they leave these lines in the skies. The storm went over, it didn't drop any rain, and I just had that memory like fused into my mind. And then I used that once I heard about the word chemtrails, which like I said, it was like I think it was like immediately thereafter because it was just like perfect for me, like in like lockstep. And so I started just digging. And I found a documentary, What in the World Are They Spraying? And another documentary, Why in the World Are They Spraying? My first thought was, I'm going to make a documentary about this. I'm going to make a documentary about this topic. And I even like made some flyers and put together a presentation, passed them out on campus, and rented out a room at the campus that I used to go to, Cal State University Humboldt. And like 5 people showed up. Better than nothing, But I gave my first chemtrail presentation. And I was like, you guys don't know about this, but this is very fascinating information. And look at this, and look at the patents, and look at the history, and la ti da. So I found that a documentary or two existed already. And so I was
How
like,
old
oh,
were they?
sweet.
How old
What's
were
that?
how old were those documentaries? Do you remember?
So what in the world are they spraying? Why in the world are they spraying? I'm gonna guess we're around like 98 and then like 2005,
Okay. So
2005, something like that. And that was by Michael J. Murphy, who has now passed away. And rest in peace. And so in watching these movies, I was like, oh, good, someone else has done it. Therefore, I don't need to do it. And this is very important because people out there, viewers, you like, I'm not you, and I'm not pointing the finger, but what we tend to do as people is we want to step up and get vocal, but then we worry about our peers. We worry about peer ridicule. We worry about, well, like maybe I'll lose my job. There's all these different pieces of the puzzle, you know,
or
like even
let
right
somebody
now,
else do it, right? Let somebody else do it.
yeah, let someone else do it, and I'll just encourage them and give them a donation or something like that. You know what I mean? Click like on their social media, and I don't have to get my hands dirty. And being an activist does come with different ramifications. For instance, I'm putting a school together right now, and I've got great enrollment, but there has been someone that reached out that said, like, I've seen that guy posts a lot about chemtrails online, and I don't really believe in that, and I don't want my kid to be indoctrinated. And I'm like, well, great, maybe you're not a good fit for this place
Right.
then, you know? Like I'm
Right.
trying to find the right people. But it does come, like activism does come with its price. But
Challenges.
yeah,
Yes.
challenges. But I also I would never not do it for anything. So I highly recommend being an activist in your own way. And if you can knit, I say knit for truth. You know, what's your passion? It could be farming, it can be, you know, the lines in the sky, it can be a lot of different things. So I didn't work on making a movie for some time because the movies already existed. And that's no excuse. And that is something that the powers that be will do. They'll get someone in a position where they can like push something out there, and then it keeps other people from doing it. But what I started to realize was there were some flaws in those movies. There was instances where, well, basically, I'm from DC area, and my friends growing up, they all work in different like government kind of jobs. And I wanted to be able to share something with my friends, my peers from when I grew up, convincing them that this was an issue, that it was something that they needed to think about and talk about and learn about and look up, wake up, right? But the documentary had holes in it, and I knew that my friends watching it would just turn it off halfway. Like there was an instance where someone was looking at a bush and the bush was dying, and then they're like, see, it must be obviously from this. And again, back to statistics, that's corollary but not causal. So
Right.
there's a huge difference between a corollary relationship and a causal relationship, and that's important to know when you're trying to convince people of something. Okay. So I wanted to make a film that didn't have any random correlations, but just would stick to the facts. And I wanted to make a movie that wasn't voiceover because voiceover tries to get you emotionally involved with, and I haven't watched your movie, and if it has a voiceover, don't mind me.
Yeah, it has a little bit of one, but not much.
Look, making a
It has
documentary
a
without a
narrator,
voiceover.
not a voiceover.
Right. In my book, that's pretty similar. But trust me, it's a huge challenge and like almost impossible to make a documentary without a narrator, and I get it. But I didn't want it to be about me. I didn't even want to be in the movie. Like I told like my friend that was helping me edit it at one point, I was like, I don't want to, and she was like, you have to be in the movie, man. And I was like,
You have to be
no,
in it.
it's not about me. It's not about me. It ended up being about me that little teeny bit. But the point is I didn't want to like emotionally get people involved and start plucking these emotional heartstrings and be like, this is my story. And, you know, every time I see the chemtrails, I can't breathe or whatever. You know, I wanted it to be about the facts and the history. And it ended up being about the history of the film. The film
Right.
starts off, Frankenstein, it starts off in the 1920s and goes through the historical chronology, the timeline of weather engineering, weather modification history. I've had a coworker, like a completely mainstream normie coworker, laughing at me and the topic and everything. And one day I got him one on one. And I go, bro, you're just gonna sit down and I'm gonna hit play. I don't even care what you have to say. He's like, okay, sure, man. Rolls his eyes. 10 minutes into the film, his eyes are like this big, and he looks at me and he goes, "They've been doing this for a while, huh, Matt?"
Yeah.
And I'll never, ever, ever forget that moment because the film, it speaks for itself. And it's so inspiring and encouraging to be able to just give someone the DVD and walk away, you know? And I wanted to be able to make something that like my grandmother could watch and my professor and my mom, my peers, my coworkers. And it is that. Like you can't really watch Frankenskies and see all the historical footage from the
Right. From
military,
yeah, right.
and then completely
That
deny
that
it
was
because
my big aha when I watched it, Matt, was I thought this stuff started like in the 70s and 80s. And when the first time I watched Frankenskies, my 1920s, like really, like no way. Like I had no idea that it started that long ago.
and as we know, the US military industrial complex, they wouldn't just create this technology and invest all this time and energy, resources. I mean, the patents go back to the 1890s of precipitating rainfall with by seeding the clouds.
Wow.
They wouldn't sharpen their tools and perfect the technology then just to abandon it. Like
And
Lyndon B.
say, oh, we're not going to
Johnson,
use it. Yeah.
yeah. Lyndon B. Johnson wouldn't be there grinding his teeth saying, control the weather, control the world, mwahaha, and then not do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they flooded the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Vietnam, and that's very public and is in Wikipedia, And I've even met people that served in Vietnam that had ailments and issues from Agent Orange. And I'm like, yeah, also there's Project Popeye where they engineer the weather. And they're like, what do you mean? That's not true. And I'm like, well, actually, and we went down this whole rabbit hole together. And even though they have this mistrust, this distrust in the government, they don't trust that what they did was right because they have like cancer from Agent Orange
Agent
being
Orange.
aerosolized and sprayed. But still, like it's almost impossible for them to fathom that the weather is engineered because we have been so heavily programmed and indoctrinated with the weather's random. Like, oh, the weather always changes. Oh, who knows? Oh, the weatherman's maybe not right. And oh, who knows? But no, it's not who knows because they do know. They know
Right.
exactly what they're doing.
I can walk outside and we know Carolina is known for its bright blue skies. And,
Mhm.
I've been here 21 years now. I can go outside and as soon as I start seeing the crisscross, I'm like, oh, it's going to rain tomorrow. I said, I should be a weather woman because I can tell you with exact 100% that as soon as I see that, I know rain's coming.
I'll one up you on that, and that's great. Good job. And I encourage you to try to predict the weather for your like normie friends that don't get it or are on the fence or whatever, and then they can start to wonder how does she know? When the weather forecast says that it's going to be like, so say it's like spring and it's like 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and then all of a sudden there's going to be this heat wave and it's going to be like 80 degrees, like just going to jump. But then the forecast calls for like partly cloudy, but the temperature is going to jump. I've been able to predict it like 100% that there's going to be a grid pattern. That there's going to be loads of lines in the sky on the day where the heat wave comes. Because what they do is they spray the sky, mix the chemicals, and then use that blanket to trap heat. Or they'll even zap the sky with ground-based stations and microwave the aerosols that they've sprayed. So they're spraying aluminum and other metals and then
Yes.
microwaving them, like putting aluminum in the microwave. And so they create this heat dome and then scratch their heads and be like, oh, global warming, it must be your fault. It's
Yeah.
you.
Get
It's
rid
the
of the
carbon that you
cows and get
emit.
rid of all right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's like they say it's the cows farting, which the cows actually burp. So that's just one thing we need to know. They say it's the cows because of the methane that they release, but that grass is going to release methane anyways as it
No
dies,
way.
whether the cows eat it or not. They say it's the carbon dioxide released from our cars, but also like very rarely will they say like we exhale carbon dioxide all day. So it's like the biggest guilt trip ever when we start to like question like, oh man, I shouldn't be breathing.
Right.
Meanwhile, the number one greenhouse gas, which nobody knows this, it's like the real science is just swept under the rug. The number one greenhouse gas is water vapor. Carbon dioxide is not even up there at the top in the greenhouse gas category. And It's only 0.08% of our atmosphere. Not even 0.1%. 0.08% of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide. If that went up, say fivefold, tenfold, it would be great for the world. The plants would be growing all big and
Thriving.
everybody would be happy.
Yep.
If it got cut in half, we might all die.
You
So I
choose.
really don't I really don't think carbon dioxide is the problem. It's never been proven to be the problem, but they've got like some like charts and they say, oh, a million years ago, this and that, and they've got people kind of like it actually goes back to Edward Bernays, which is fascinating. The nephew of Sigmund Freud created this like propaganda campaign. He got people eating bacon. It's like staple in the American breakfast. Got to eat your bacon. Got people smoking cigarettes. Cigarettes are sexy. It's just get them smoking and like and made it this advertising where it was like sexualized. Like you're gonna be popular and whatever and get all the girls and guys if you smoke cigarettes, but also trust the specialist. And it was his idea to put the doctors in white coats and have them all like
Oh,
trust
yeah.
your doctor. But this phrase, trust the specialist, came from Edward Bernays, and it really got into everybody's consciousness and got everyone thinking like, oh, I'm gonna stay in my lane and focus on my specialty and get the degree in engineering. I'm an engineer and I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm this, and I'm not a farmer. I'm this. But it's actually really important to wear many hats in this world because they try to bamboozle you and say, oh, well, you're not a scientist, so therefore,
Well,
and
it
oh,
became
yeah,
white coat syndrome, right? It's what started the whole white coat syndrome is, oh, I don't know. I need to ask my doctor. So we started outsourcing our health, right? We've outsourced many other things, our minds, our brains, critical
exactly, our
thinking,
knowledge. Hmm.
but we've outsourced our health and I see it all the time. Just tell me what to do, give me the quick fix, let me, and then I'll go about my business. And that's not how our bodies work. We're not designed to heal that way by blocking a pathway or shutting something down. And that's what we've done, right? That's become the
Right. I've
norm.
It's unbelievable. I've met people that have had lymph
Yep.
nodes removed because they were like swollen or something. And then, I mean, or even like there's so many different things that where they just take a knife to you or radiate you or whatever. But on a positive note, people going through health crises, a lot of the time they come out the other end so wise. And I can speak to it, and I know you can speak to it. We all need these triggers to wake us up, you know?
Yeah.
Some of it might be like a family member, or some of it might be a catastrophe of some sort. But these health crises, especially, you start to really question the mainstream. Like in my instance, for instance, I went to the doctor over a swollen prostate, which was likely dietary, or maybe I was sitting too much, whatever it was. But then I was put on ciprofloxacin, which
Oh,
Cipro is a
the most
very
toxic
poison.
drug to the body, by the way, the most toxic that will break your mitochondria and your cellular health.
So ciprofloxacin, CIPRO, feel free to look up ciproispoison.com. Wow. It's a fluoride pill, basically. And what it is it's like one of the number one prescribed antibiotics. People have abrupt tendon rupture. Even like years later, you can just have adverse reactions and all of a sudden be in a wheelchair for life. I was supposed to take this antibiotic for a month, and on day one and a half, I had abrupt tendon rupture where all my tendons turned to jelly and I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything. My tendons in my jaw, my tendons in my elbow, like all my tendons turned to jelly. Abrupt tendon rupture. And that's just one of the side effects, but that totally woke me up to everything. Like I didn't even want to go to the doctor. I didn't even want to take their pills, but I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay," because I wasn't like completely there yet. After that experience, I completely abandoned all of it. I had a cavity in my mouth and I was like, no, thank you. And I swished coconut oil every morning and I watched that cavity go away. It's gone. The coconut
Yep.
oil removed the cavity in just like a month's time. There's so many different things that are hidden from us that I realize why? Because of
Yep.
money and
Yep.
greed and all these other evil things. But it's like they don't really want to get you sick. The word cure, and we could go so many directions with all this. The word cure means to preserve, like cure meat. So that word got twisted and hijacked by big pharma, and we are over here saying, I'm going to cure my this and cure my cancer or whatever. We're actually saying to preserve it. Like we don't even realize the word magic that
What
we're
we're
saying, and
saying.
words are very powerful. Like we are very powerful, spiritual beings, and placebo and what have you, and what we say and reinforce does make a difference.
So what has changed from when so Frankenskies came out in 2017, is that right?
Good job. Yeah.
So what has changed since then? Do you feel that more people have awakened? And if so, what can we do to keep helping people wake up?
Great question. And so much has changed. When I made the movie I was making the movie in like 2015, and I really wanted to get the movie out in 2016. And all these roadblocks, hurdles, like walls were coming up. And I was like near giving up. I was like, how is this even possible that I can't get this movie finished and out there? And then as I was like screaming at God, like, what is going on? The mainstream media came out and started for the first time ever announcing that they were going to use geoengineering to dim the sun to save us from global warming. Prior to then, geoengineering was just a crackpot conspiracy word, and it was a synonym for chemtrails. People would say, "Oh, you can use either word," and people take you more seriously if you say geoengineering because chemtrails has been like really demonized, even though the Air Force made up that word as well.
Right.
Kind of funny. So I was able to include in Frankenskies some of this normalization released from the mainstream media of the launch of the spraying publicly, or they say they're going to do it in the future as they're continuing to do it. But it was a big eye opener, and so that was great to be able to plug it in the film. Now, in this modern day, 2026, so much has changed. The biggest thing is that during the lockdowns, a lot of people started questioning
Everything.
everything. And that was huge. The lockdowns were a smelling salt for a lot of the world. And if you didn't wake up completely, it put you on the fence for sure. Even if you lined up and got the jabs and stuff like that, I know so many people that are scratching their heads like, should I have done that? And wait a second, I thought everyone who didn't get the shot should be dead. And like, there's so much there. So during the lockdowns, people started contacting me like in waves, especially from the UK, which I thought was so fascinating. Like I get a lot of people reach out to me. Okay, what'd you say?
Oh, I said that's interesting that from the UK of all places.
I know, and I analyzed that, right? I thought you said that, and it was very interesting. So I analyzed it, and what I think happened is a lot of people were in the UK, especially. They talk, they go out to the pub, they have like their social life, and they didn't really have any reason to like really wake up at the time, you know? But once the rug was pulled out from under them and they were told to stay home and all this sort of stuff, they started having these opportunities to look up and to talk. And I mean, we surely had these opportunities to look up and talk too, but the UK is more tight knit and word can get around more. And like it is a really like pub oriented, like go out to the bar and like have a pint and have a chat with your local community. And as that was taken away, people still talked and they still conversed about what was going on in the world. And so many people over there just started to have this mass awakening based on the lockdown scenario and pushing the shots on people and all that ensued. And so because of the volume of the people that were reaching out to me in the UK, I started thinking to myself, maybe I should put something together in the UK. And I do believe in like divine guidance.
Mhm.
So I do feel like I was like divinely guided to like start setting up a rally in London, which I'd never been to London before, but I felt these synchronicities and this like energy was like guiding me basically to set something up in London. So as I started to put together a rally in London, it really started last year. in February. So in February of 2025, I was like, I'm going to do a rally in London and we're going to gather and wake people up to the ongoing geoengineering spraying chemtrails campaign. As I started to put it together and finally got some momentum, literally like once I had the place, the where the rally was going to be in Marble Arch, which is like this plaza in London, and I started going on the podcast and getting it on the newspapers and making the posters and everything, the UK government came out publicly and said for the first time, we will start spraying your skies with geoengineering campaigns to dim the sun to save you from global warming. We're going to spend 66 million US dollars, 50 million British pounds, quid, they call it. And we're going to start in 2 weeks. They said it publicly, and it was all over the media. And then people wanted to come together. They wanted to rally and protest it, and I already had a protest lined up for them. So on the 21st of June, it was last year. This year's the 20th of June. We're coming together. We came together last year. Thousands of people came. We had musicians, we had speakers, we had artists. It was amazing. The signs and the t-shirts that people had that were chemtrail specific. I couldn't believe that so many people were aware and awake and active about this. So you ask what can be done. We can join each other in having rallies, or we can do small things like having film screenings and what have you. But it is so important that we do this on a grassroots level because the propaganda machine wants to tell us that like states are banning chemtrails and the senators are taking care of it for
Right.
us and don't worry. That is maybe that's good that they're talking about it, but also what it does is it keeps everyone on their couch and thinking that someone's doing it for us. And that's been this repeated theme throughout history is don't worry, someone else will do it for you. You don't have to get involved. And regarding the chemtrails and this agenda that's rearing its ugly head, because it's not just chemtrails, it's Agenda 2030, New World Order. They call it net zero in the UK, where they're saying like we're going to have to cut down carbon emissions and push you into 15-minute cities, and they're trying to get
Which is
to.
happening in London, by the way.
Yes, it is. They have zones where you can't drive your car or you'll get ticketed, and you have to have a newer car. It's called ULEZ, ULEZ. And in Scotland, they have similar things. And what happens over there will trickle down and happen over here. They just know that if they try to push that on us first, we'll fight and we'll say
Right.
no. And then the whole world will say, oh, if the US is fighting and they say no, then we're going to say no as well. So that's why they're putting in the AI and the data centers over here and all this, and the cars that have the biometrics that can be shut off, electric cars that can just be shut off if they don't like you, if you're not playing nice or if you're not getting the right medicine or shots or whatever. They're starting it in the UK because they're unarmed. They don't have guns.
Right.
And they think that they can pull the wool over their eyes first and put in these systems in place first over there and then have that spread throughout the world. This like restrictions of how they travel, 15-minute city nonsense. And the people are waking up and they're pissed. And what people are realizing are that there's a war on consciousness. There's a war on humanity. And it's not like the wars that we're told. It's not like the wars on the TV. It's not like the wars in the media. We are told to believe that war looks a certain way, that
Right.
there's tanks and that there's bombs and that there's, blood in the streets and that if there's not bombs dropping on our doorstep that we're safe and our government is taking care of us. But the truth of the matter is there is an ongoing war and it is
Mhm.
happening right here, right now. And you and I have the eyes to see this. We not only have the eyes to see the writing on the wall and to see the future, we have the eyes to see the present.
Yes.
And for those of us that do have the eyes to see, we have the responsibility, the obligation to speak up and to dismantle this system that's being put in place right before our eyes. And how to do it, it involves every one of us getting involved in little ways. And I
Right.
know
I was just going
we're
to ask if
programmed.
you could share some of those ways. And
Yes.
for people that haven't awakened yet, how do you meet them where they are to help get them over the hump?
Great, great. That's a great point. So we've been programmed to think that like Superman or Batman or someone like that is going to do it. Like we sit down and temporarily suspend our disbelief in the movie theater, but we walk away still with that programming that like in an hour and a half time that the world can be saved by Superman, and all you have to do is like let him hide in your basement for one night or something like that, and you don't have to really get involved.
Right.
But that's a programming. And what is the fact is we're dealing with a technocratic like dystopia that is rearing its ugly head. And if we care about ourselves, care about our future, care about our grandchildren's grandchildren, and what we're setting up for them, we have to pass them a torch worth carrying. And if we just sit idle, we're going to pass them a torch that's soaking wet and can't even be lit again. So for actionable items that people can do, I can send you a Frankenstein's DVD. You can host a little Frankenstein screening in your town. You can put together little graphics and put them up in your town in a very like grounded fashion. Like, did you know that patents blah blah blah? Or have you seen these lines in the sky? Sometimes I think it's powerful to point out to people those beautiful days with no lines.
Right.
They don't want to hear it from you in this like place of fear. Okay, they've been burdened and bombarded with all this fear mongering, the war in Iran, like all these things. They don't want to be scared into truth. Okay, truth is a high vibration where love and all these other truths exist, and on that high frequency of truth, chemtrails exist, but also other truths exist. And if you can elevate your frequency, elevate your vibration to that higher vibration of truth, other truths will become self-evident and you can see through their lies. You become unfoolable, which is fascinating because the word unfoolable, which is it
I
is a
love that
word,
word.
it whenever I type it on social media, they say it's all in red like it's a typo. Like they have it in their programming not to use the word unfoolable, and they gaslight me and tell me it's a typo, and then I go look it up and I'm like, that's a word.
Mhm.
There's a reason for that. There's a reason why they don't want you talking about unfoolable. And I post things on social media talking about like having gratitude throughout the day and what have you. And I go back and it's got one like because certain things get censored because they don't want you to be inspired and empowered and unfoolable and living a life of gratitude. They want you in fear all the time because in fear you are controlled. And in
And it
fear
lowers
you're
your
happy.
vibration. Yeah. It's so many.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're in a lower vibration and you're ready for the government handouts and you'll do what they say and you'll even line up for an experimental, injection maybe.
Injection.
So for the people that aren't awake, I encourage others to help them along in a very gentle way. Point out those big white fluffy clouds with those beautiful blue skies. Point those out. I know they're few and far between nowadays, especially where I live. But if you can get people opening their hearts and their minds to, wow, those big, beautiful, fluffy clouds, I remember those from my childhood. How come they're not
Mhm.
around as much? And I remember laying out and looking at them shift and be like, look at that duck. Now it's a rabbit or whatever.
So,
Now they're just snakes and ropes. You know what I mean? Now it's just
yes.
lines in the sky. They're not like they were, but we do have those memories and we can, recall. So there's different ways. Frankenstein's is a nice tool, which it's a great resource. You don't have to like convince them of everything. If you can plant that seed, then the soil can later be fertile and that seed can germinate and it's not up to you. You're just the seed planter. The sun and the rain and the fertile soil, those are the conditions of the environment in which the person lives. And, as seed planters, you never know what's going to come next. I've heard people say things like I approach someone with a flyer or something and they're like, you know what? My crazy uncle was talking about that and I never gave him the time of day. But now that I'm hearing about it a second time,
Right. That's the tap
I'm gonna,
tap. Yeah.
uh-huh, I'm gonna look into that. And I've seen it in all sorts of different circles, all sorts of different demographics, from old to young, white, black, like ghetto, rich. Like people just need to have that repetition because we get repetition from everywhere else. I mean, how
Right.
many times have we heard about whatever, gas prices or whatever it is? You know what I mean? Like the truth also needs repetition in a grounded fashion. And so if you start to just plant the seed properly, people will look up and see things for themselves. And then once they've witnessed it for themselves, like how come all the planes are going the same direction? And then they're all gone. What were all those planes just flying to Milwaukee and now they're not? You know what I mean? How come they're not going towards the airport? How come there's planes in the sky that don't leave any lines at all? And then right next to them there are planes that are leaving lines. People can start to like ask these big important questions without knowing everything, you know? Then when they're down the rabbit hole, you can show them the rainwater analyses, you can show them other movies and other books and have them really getting deep into it, especially the patents. I think the patents really tell a story. Like
Yes.
you don't invest in technology and patent something for fear that someone else will take it and then just ignore that technology and shelve it. There's also like articles in the microfiche, like these older articles from the 70s, what have you. Farmers used to seed their own rain. And what's really fascinating about these old articles, which in this day of AI, so many things are like being
Yeah.
thrown out the window. It's like I'm making a sequel film with all this amazing videographic evidence from decades ago. But I know people can look at it and just be like, oh, that could be AI. So people are no longer able to think
Right. Once
because
again,
they're yeah, so it's so important to be able to plant the seed and have them see that for themselves because at least today they can look at the sky and not question whether it's real or not. As we have more nonsense going on in the sky, Project Bluebeam, intensified solar flares, northern lights down in Florida and all that stuff, which is actually induced by HARP chemicals, chemtrail spraying, and then ground-based stations such as HARP, which is in Alaska. But there's smaller versions of these ionospheric heaters that utilize intersecting radio waves to microwave the sky. You can see the chemtrails get sprayed, and then when the spray unravels into a milky haze, and when they turn on the ground-based station, all of a sudden there's these ripples in the sky that look like when you throw a pebble in the pond, and these ripples.
yeah, you can see the
That's
resonance from it, right? You can see the
yeah,
frequency.
that's the signature of the frequency of them microwave in the sky to steer a system or to make a heat wave or whatever. But these things can be seen with our own eyes. And once they're witnessed firsthand,
And
it
people,
opens up a door for people to have big questions, and then they can come to you and you can watch Franken Skies with them, sit down, watch the movie with them. There's opportunity once they've been pushed out of their comfort zone, once they've started to really think outside of the box. And so we're just here to help them think outside the box and to push them out of their comfort zone and plant that seed. And it can be done through just a simple conversation. I mean,
right?
even just pointing up to people and saying, "Oh wow, there's a lot of air traffic today. That's interesting." I've seen them doing like circle eights over my town, and I'm like, "Oh man, I hope this is waking someone up today." And I'll point it out to people in a grounded fashion. Oh, I wonder where that flight's going. Maybe they lost their way. Is that pilot drunk? You know what I mean? And it makes people stop and think.
Think, right? And
We
that's
can
where
all plant.
it
Sorry, we can all
changes.
plant it. I'm gonna let you talk, I swear. We can play our part in our
Yes.
own ways. And it's not like Superman stopping King Kong or whatever. It's little steps. And it's in a grounded fashion. You don't want to be the black sheep at the Thanksgiving where they're like, don't let him talk. We know your crazy stuff and Epstein, this and that, and all these like radical things and Pizzagate and all this, it's like there's actually things that are put out there that they want us to repeat to make us sound ungrounded. So it's so important to be grounded in our delivery.
Well, let's just close with this last question about Spero clothing. It's one of the solutions that you've come up with. So share a little bit about why silver, how silver clothing supports us because we're getting bombarded with heavy metals, right? And all kinds of other things in our skies. It's affecting nature. It's affecting our human body. So what can we do to protect ourselves?
We're already getting to the end.
I know. Can you believe it?
We can do a
I'll have
follow-up
you back
sometime if you
on.
like.
I need to have you
Yeah,
back on for sure.
I would happily come on. And I get excited when I'm talking to like-minded people like you, and there's so much that I want to get out. So don't mind me. Um, One thing that I learned that is an amazing takeaway that is so empowering and inspiring, which I will answer your question, but I'm going to go on a little segue. people ask, how can I detox? How can I chelate? How can I get these chemtrails out of my body? And that's a great question. And I will talk about that in my sequel film, Frankenskies 2. And yes, you can chelate with spirulina, chlorella. Um,
European alder, there's some great trees that can help clean up the
yeah,
body.
horsetail also
Mhm.
is silica rich, and you can get that in a tincture form. And there's things that can bond and attach to the heavy metals and pull them out of your body. I think that is amazing and great, but also more empowering and even more effective is taking care of your body and mineralizing yourself. So we go through approximately 120, I think it's 118, about 120 minerals per day our body needs to function. I know none of us can rattle off 120 minerals. One of those minerals is Einsteinium, magnesium and all these other things. On that list of minerals that we need on a daily basis is aluminum, plant-based trace levels of aluminum. Wild that we and also on that list is barium, and also on that list is calcium and all these other things. But what's important is we need trace levels of all these things, including aluminum. So, say you take your supplements and you got bioavailable supplements. So you're taking like organ meat, and there's a company called New Health Order that I like, who I interviewed on my podcast recently, and they were amazing. And they put me on to their vitamin, which is not synthetic, and it's all like organs and stuff like that, which I think is really great. Also, I'm a huge fan of sea moss, which is a seaweed. I take this blend of sea moss, bladderwrack, and burdock, which gives you all the minerals that you need on a daily basis. Sea moss and bladderwrack being seaweeds, and then burdock being a root that cleanses
Root.
your blood, right?
Yes.
Bladderwrack has the iron in it that you need, and that's one of the reasons why that's in that blend. Those three things, bladderwrack, burdock, and sea moss, are popular to be blended together and sold as a supplement. You can find it online, very easy to find. I recommend Wildcrafted because evidently they can grow the sea moss in a swimming pool, whatever. So you take your minerals and you're up to speed on your minerals. You're not walking around mineral deficient. So
Which
then
most people are, by the way.
so many people are.
Most
I mean, we're not, the soil is doesn't have Einsteinium and gold and palladium and platinum and
Right.
silver in it. Like people aren't putting all these amazing things in it. Really, to grow food nowadays, you really just have to have nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in PK. So three minerals are needed. And so the soil is depleted. The soil doesn't have all the things in it. No one's out there sprinkling gold on their soil to grow potatoes. You know what I mean? Which they could and should, but that's another story. So if you're up to speed on your minerals and you're not walking around mineral deficient, then you're not walking around a sponge trying to get your minerals from your toxic environment, whether that be the tap water that you bathe in, or the air that you're walking around in and breathing, or the foods that you eat, and some of which might be toxic or whatever, McDonald's, what have you. So if you're mineral deficient, your body is like, oh, I could really use some of that trace levels of aluminum, magnesium, what have you, potassium, whatever. And so they spray in the sky radioactive cadmium, for instance. Well, the body is like, oh, maybe that radioactive cadmium, maybe that's something good, and on all the periodic tables, and well, we want like trace levels of this and that, and then it's similar to calcium, so we just go ahead and embed that in our bones. Oh, there's some aluminum in the air, even though it's the toxic heavy metal version of it and not the bioavailable plant-based version of it. Our body doesn't know. And our body's like, oh, I could sure use a little bit of that trace level aluminum to help my body out. And then you absorb it into your system. Okay? But if you're up to speed on your minerals and you're not a sponge because you've taken care of your body and you know about bioavailability and you're not taking synthetic vitamins or whatever, and you're not eating like basically some of these supplements out there are like rocks. Like they're
Right.
not plant-based. You're just eating rocks. You're not able
And
to
they're
absorb them.
synthetic, right? You're getting
Yeah.
synthetic crap. Yeah.
Yeah. Even there's synthetic stuff, but then there's also things like um, yeah, things that are actually just like rocks. Like I'm not really too sure about necessarily like consuming diatomaceous earth or zeolite and stuff like that. Like these are like rocks. I'm a big fan of bioavailability. And yeah, the synthetic stuff is all crap. Like I used to take this A to Z vitamin growing up. All those things just need to be thrown in the trash, to be quite frank. So I'm sure that people are understand what I'm saying, but I'm just going to hammer it home. As I'm out there in the world, not a sponge, because of taking care of my body with the proper supplements, bioavailable minerals, I'm not absorbing all these toxins from the environment. So now I'm like a step up and I'm not all worried about chelating because I'm not a sponge anymore. And so many people out there are sponges and are just absorbing these toxins from their toxic environment unknowingly and not knowing that they could just take care of themselves in different ways. So regarding the silver clothing line, and thank you, I, just like yourself, I worked in finance and I actually worked like 45 different jobs. I counted recently when I was like on a Greyhound bus. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've had so many different walks of life. I have worked in so many different industries, but as an activist, when I made Franken Skies, I was like, I want to check out of the matrix. I don't want to work for anyone anymore. I want to do something good for the world and get paid, which is inspiring and encouraging because I was able to actually do that. And so many people out there, like they have this idea, but they're like, no, I've got to continue working for, you know, whoever it is, Goldman Sachs or whatever, JP Morgan, whatever, doesn't even matter. Like people get stuck thinking out of fear that they
No way
can't,
out.
that there's no way out.
Yeah.
But there are ways out, and you can use this rising consciousness as an opportunity to make money as well. And I know that sounds a little bit off, but for instance, this new health order supplement line that I interviewed them, they were all up in the mainstream, and then they created this supplement line and they're making fun of the new world order by calling it new health order, and they're doing great. And other people do things to counter the evil in the world, but can also make money doing it. And so I wanted to protect people from 5G and EMF radiation, and I learned the hard way that smart meters are no bueno. I had a smart meter right next to where I was working and living and making my film, and I started having heart palpitations and became hyper electrically sensitive. I had a severe case of electro-hypersensitivity. I couldn't even hold my phone at the time, and I ended up, now I've got wired internet, landline, no cell phone. I'm on social media a lot, but it's on my wired laptop. And I don't do wireless anymore. I don't do EMF radiation. And if you are doing those earbuds, those wireless earbuds and stuff like that, you got to learn better and throw those things in the trash. So by learning about EMF and learning that there was a way to shield it, I dove in. I literally was working a job and I got all the money that I had, which was like 5,000 bucks. I put it in a fanny pack and I flew to Southeast Asia. And I went around with this fabric made of copper at the time. And I learned how to say it in Thai, pa tordai tongdang, which means fabric made of copper. And I went to all these markets with this copper, looking for copper and silver fabric. And they all looked at me like I had two heads. And I realized that it wasn't the country for that. And so come to find out, only Japan, Korea, and China they have the manufacturing processes to make EMF protection fabric, which you can make it out of copper, silver, and steel. The steel fabric's not very comfortable. The copper fabric isn't washable, has to be grounded all the time. So the best one is silver. So silver is a dense metal that can act as shielding in that it deflects and guards from radiation from EMF. So first I made these foam bags where you put your phone in the bag and you seal it up and it doesn't get any signal. And then I know I'm running out of time, but I'll tell you really quick. I started making these foam bags in 2018. I was really proud of my company and I had these foam bags and I was selling them all over the world. Then in March 2020, they're blackout Faraday foam bags, no signal inside, no text message, no Wi-Fi, no nothing.
I
So in
have
March
one.
20, beautiful. In March 2020, when we had these lockdowns, people started contacting me from different places, hotspots especially. Like they were like COVID outbreak hotspots, Fort Lauderdale, LA, and stuff like that. People started contacting me saying, Matt, your phone bag that I've had for years, all of a sudden doesn't work. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, I didn't get a new phone. It just is ringing through the bag now. And I'm like, oh, wow, it must be manufacturer's defect. Let me send you a new one, whatever. I scrambled and scrambled and scrambled, but come to find out, people's phone bags stopped working in March 2020. So I had to make them 2 layers of the silver fabric. Okay. So I had 2 layered silver fabric foam bags, sent them to all the complaining customers, and then they worked, blackout foam bags. Well, then it was like 2021, those foam bags stopped working. And I was like, how could that even be possible? So I talked to my manufacturer. We figured out a way. We made them 3 layers of silver fabric. They worked great. Then when the Omicron variant was coming out, Omicron variant, the foam bag stopped working again. And I had to change and adapt. And now I'm on version 8 and version 8.0. So I've gone through 8 foam bags of evolution. And now I use copper and nickel and silver, 3 layers of metal. And now the phones get blacked out inside. But what happened there? What was I
Right.
experiencing? I was on the front lines experiencing this on a worldwide level. Customers from all over the world with their testimonials telling me all their stories. What was happening was the phones were being upgraded to 5G. And even if it was called 4G LTE, LTE stands for long-term evolution. A lot of people have 4G LTE phones. They don't even know what LTE means. You're carrying around this thing in your pocket. You don't know what it means. LTE stands for long-term evolution, meaning it's going to evolve into 5G without even getting like a hardware upgrade. It's just they're just going to make it a 5G phone,
Immediate.
which 5G means that it's emitting a different signal. It's a very small carrier wave measured in millimeters, which cannot go very far. It relies on other phones amplifying the signal, and each phone is basically like a little cell tower that collects the data of all the local data and tries to send that on to the next node, which the node can be another cell phone, another 5G phone, or 4G LTE, or it can be a cell tower. So the signal just keeps getting pushed around, and they say that the signal can only go like 500 to 1,000 feet. So you need all these mobile nodes working with it. It's nothing like its predecessors. 4G, 3G, the signal would go really far and then get to the cell tower. It didn't need all these other nodes in the system, and it wasn't measured in millimeters, and it wasn't so absorptive. But now that it's such a small carrier wave and it's so strong to be able to push it the limited distance, it's very impactful and very absorptive because size really matters. So like AM radio waves, FM radio waves, AM
Mm.
radio waves are 100 feet. They can go really, they're 100 feet in like height if you're going to measure the waveform. FM waves are 10 feet. Wi-Fi is measured in centimeters, and it's actually rather large. It can go through bricks and stuff like that. All the wireless tech that we had prior to 5G was much larger in wave like height if you were to measure it in amplitude, and can go great distance. I mean, remember like the cell towers were like on the hillsides. Now
Oh,
they've got to be
yeah.
like now they've got to be like right there on the freeway. The size, the carrier size is impactful because of the size of us, like how big we are and how big our cells are and what have you. AM radio waves, they just go right through us. It doesn't even matter. But 5G, it doesn't. It hits a leaf, it hits a tree, it hits us, even water droplets, and it absorbs into it because of the size of the wave.
Which is
It's just a
terrifying.
which is
It's
terrifying. It's the
terrifying.
properties of the wave. So what I was experiencing with those phone bags is the 5G technology was being turned up. The phones were emitting such a strong signal that it was penetrating these Faraday blackout bags that people were so excited about. But also, people were getting sick from that change in technology. People were having low level radiation sickness symptoms, loss of hair, flu like symptoms, all these things. And nobody was over there telling them that it was their phones making them sick. And I firmly know it's not even a belief because based on my experiences and who I am and what I've witnessed, I know that the lockdowns and the pandemic and what have you, that was all a smokescreen for the rollout of
To
5G.
get yeah, for
Because
sure.
had that not been there, people wouldn't be in it. People would have been like, wait a second, my whole family just got this new phone and now we're sick. Another thing worth mentioning is if you have phones that are 5G or 4G LTE and they're on the same carrier, as they come together, like if you've got a family of phones, it creates a network. So like 5 people sitting at the dinner table with 5G phones, that's like a network and a stronger signal, and then all that signal gets amplified and pushed on. It's like putting a cell tower in your living room when you have 5 of those phones together. They work together to create a strong signal to then beamform that to the next closest cell tower. The technology is very predatory. So in learning about that, smart meters, Wi-Fi, all that sort of stuff, and how predatory it is, not to mention the way that our bodies perceive EMF radiation is that it's bright light. So it throws off our circadian rhythms, throws off our circadian clock. We absorb it into our bodies thinking it's light because our body is set up to absorb light. Our whole endocrine system and our skin and everything, our pineal gland, our eyes, we want to absorb light to for the vitamin D and for the biological clock and all that sort of stuff. But instead we absorb EMF radiation thinking that it's light, not good for us.
Not
So
good at
that's
all.
why I made the clothing line, especially with fertility in question. So I've got maternity wear and what have you, because fertility is going to be a really big issue in the future, as
It already is. It
it
already
already
is a
is.
big issue. Yeah.
So the silver clothing I'm really proud of, and I've got like 45 different items, and I'm really thankful to be leading that industry. There's about a dozen companies worldwide. I'm leading the niche in North America. I hope other people step up and sell the silver clothing as well, because a rising tide lifts all ships, and in this
Yes.
industry, the more the merrier. But I think it's a really neat topic, and it's very much activism related. Like, you get a Spero beanie and you show people the silver, it's like shiny in the sunlight. You tell them what it's for and why. You tell them, oh, I don't have headaches anymore when I wear this or whatever. And it's like you're now a walking, talking activist just from having gotten one item, and people are curious, and then they ask you about it, and then they learn something, that there's this invisible stuff coming off of phones and whatnot. Like, people are so not aware of the technology that their phones are. Like, when I show them the EMF reader and I show them what the phone's doing, they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "What did you think? It was magic?" Like,
Right.
it's doing stuff even when you're not touching it. So I've got blogs on my website, and yes, you're right, Spero, Spero, it's a Latin word. It means hope. In Spanish and Italian, it means I hope. And the reason why I named the company that is the goal of the company is to bring hope and awareness and education through the existence of the company, to the next generation, through empowerment, education, shielding, and whatnot. I'm also selling incandescent light bulbs. That's been a big hit recently, and blue light blocking glasses, and other things. So please check out the website if you're up for it. Spero, Spero Gear. Spero Gear is the Instagram handle. Also, I have a website, actualactivists.com, actual activists, plural, because we all can be one. And that's like a one-stop shop for truth. There's so much stuff on there you can dig and find. You can learn something new. I can learn something new on my own website that I maintain. There's a lot of information and beautiful stuff on there on herbs, and there's a podcast hub on there, which I'd love to include you on, refer people to podcasts. But yeah, the silver clothing line has been a blessing. And like I said, I was able to turn activism into a career. And I own my own business, and I am
Amazing.
my own boss. So I encourage other people to step up and do what you love in the form of activism, because if
To
you
make an
care
impact in
about
the world. We're here to make an impact in the world, and we all have a legacy. And
exactly.
that's what I ask is, what is your legacy? I have your sweatpants, your tank top, and your gloves,
Cool.
and a
Oh,
phone
wow.
bag. So I'm a huge fan, and I tell people about it all the time, because what we see as invisible is hurting us in many ways. And that's part of my message as well. So love
Terrific.
it.
Yeah, it's important.
So, oh my gosh, thank you. It's been so great to have you here. I think we could go another 6 hours, and I definitely will have you back on. But thank you for your message. Thank you for your courage, because it takes courage to be an activist. It's not the easiest path, but you make it look easy. So thanks, Matt, for being here today.
Thank you very much, Jen. Thank you for having me on, and for the role that you play in the world as well. And yeah, we need more people like you and I out there, shining the light so that others can find their way out of the dark.
Yes, amen. All right, high five. Enjoy your rest of your afternoon, and thank you again. It's been
Thank you. I
amazing.
look forward to chatting again soon if we can.
Sounds great. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.